Hello everyone and welcome back to TowerGate. It is TowerGate day number 974, Monday, December the 2nd, 2019. Thank you so much for tuning in. Okay, so yeah, it's a lot of people, some pretty crazy weather going on. We're on the rain side of everything. Pretty rare. Typically we'd be getting snow right now, but it's been kind of cold rain. I know Gene's probably in the same boat. I saw his comment where it's pretty rainy there in Virginia. A lot of people, though, just north of us, in fact, just north of here, actually, like an hour north, like Columbus, south of Columbus, they're actually getting snow. So a lot of snow, storms and stuff going on. So, yeah, it's kind of a little bit of crazy weather pattern out there. But hopefully everybody's safe, home, dry, and warm, and ready for a little TowerGate. So, anyway, just hang in there, man. It's that time of year. You know, we got to go through it, but it won't be long, and we'll get through the holidays and spring's right around the corner. So, anyway, today I want to, of course, cover some of the news headlines. I did finally finish the Lee Smith book, so the last 3 or 4 chapters, there's a few things from there that I want to mention from the book. And then, of course, the Dumbass of the Week. And that'll be a lot of fun today. So, anyway, let's go ahead and get to the news of the day. We have now a third poll, and I really haven't talked about this although these other 2 polls came out earlier last week. There's now a third poll showing Trump with a 33% approval, and this is with minority voters, and they ask us 2 questions if they approve of Trump, and then they said, will you vote for him? And in this particular poll, and this is an Emerson poll, which is generally regarded as a pretty good poll, and this gives us 3 polls now. So I typically like an aggregate of polls, and you throw out the high one, you throw out the low one, and you take everything else. But this is 3 polls in the last week and a half that has Trump getting over 30% of minority voters. And this poll, this Emerson poll, has 33% approval, with 29% of those minority voters saying that they will vote for Trump. Now that's a whole that really is a different number that we've seen now, because this is not just an approval number, it's a are you going to vote for him number. And if this is true, if this pans out in 2020, as I have mentioned before, if Trump gets 20% or better of black and Hispanic votes, he could win 40 states. 40, he won 30 in 2016. He could win 40 if he gets those kind of numbers. So it's a disaster for the Democrats. They're driving their own voters out of their own party. And it's like it's obvious to everyone but them. It's really extraordinary. I think we maybe, if the Democrats don't get a handle on things pretty quickly here, I mean, you know, you think about a party like the Democratic Party has been around forever, you know, since the founding of our country practically. And this party could be done. I mean, as far as on the issues and their platform, that will definitely have to change. That is done. But, I mean, the party itself could be done. It's really extraordinary. We are living in extraordinary times. We really are. Well, it looks like that quid pro quo Joe Biden has attempted to restart or re-kickstart his campaign. He's got a new slogan, which is no malarkey, which is horrible. And he's kicking this off in Iowa. So his very first stop, his first 2 stops really, at this restarting his campaign, huge gaffes. So he starts off by his wife is speaking, and she's flailing her arms, and she almost hits him as she throws her arm back like that. And then quid pro quo Joe, the crazy son of a bitch, starts chewing and nibbling on her fingers, on her hand. And it just looks creepy. I mean, it looks crazy. And all those Bidens are nutty. His wife's a nut. His kid's obviously a nut. I mean, these are nutty people. Only in politics could you have any success at all being as nutty as these people are. And then he starts going on this. I'm sure many of you have seen this video. It's maybe as bad as anything I've seen. From Quid Pro Quo Joe, he starts talking about how when he was younger, kids at the pool like to rub the hair on his legs because he has hairy legs. And then he starts talking about how much he loves children sitting in his lap. And then he goes off from that onto something about, you know, roaches. I mean, it's like, it's just hard to I mean, I can't believe I'm seeing what I'm seeing. This guy is, according to the Democrat Party, is their front runner. I mean, he's got a lot of problems, and this thing we were talking about yesterday about, the fact that, I knew the rotten Reverend Clinton had people planted in the Warren campaign. Then it looks like now she had people planted in the Legs in the Air Harris campaign. Man, I wouldn't be surprised she's got somebody planted in the Biden campaign, because whoever is advising him is not on his team, okay? I mean, this, as I've been saying for months and months and months, he's not going to make it. This guy is not going to make it. I mean, when they start counting votes for real, and we're only 3 months away, 2 months away, really. They're going to start counting votes for real, and man, I don't think he's going to win New Hampshire. I don't think he's going to win Iowa. I don't know where he's going to win. And this is his kick off the restart, And you would think that he would think about what he's saying, or have some idea what he wants to talk about, to make sure that he doesn't drift off into this crazy talk, but he continues to do it. He gets worse and worse. This guy doesn't get better. He gets worse. It's a freak show. I mean, the guy is a walking freak show. And his kid, he's a freak show. His wife's nutty as hell. Probably a nice lady, but nutty as hell. I mean, that whole clan, man. Oh, God. Oh, I'm just glad that I'm not a Democrat and having to deal with this as a Democrat. I mean, I actually almost feel sorry for these people. This is what they've got. But yeah, it's a mess. It is a mess. And we are, of course, needing to report on the fact that the bug-eyed fool, Adam Schiff, is going to give the Democrats his report on Monday, today, and he's only going to give them 24 hours to decide how to vote. The report is going to recommend the articles of impeachment that they want to move on, and of course, it appears that Schiff is going to use collusion. Russia and Ukraine collusion is the primary things that they want to hold the impeachment hearing on. I've been saying this for a while now. I don't know if they're going to get the votes. I mean, if you're a Democrat in these districts, these swing districts, or certainly red districts, you're committing suicide by voting for this. But I wouldn't be surprised. But there's another side of me that's kind of the crazy side of me, that I'm thinking, what, if I'm Trump, I get my White House counsel in, and I get a couple smart people around me, maybe Pompeo, some people around me, and I call Lindsey Graham in, and I say, Lindsey, can you guarantee me, if we have this trial in the Senate, that you will absolutely 100% call the whistleblower, the bug-eyed fool, Chalupa, Brennan, and a couple of these other clowns? Will you absolutely call these people in to testify? And if Lindsey Graham says absolutely 100%, if this trial comes in the Senate, we're going to have the whistleblower, we're going to have the Bidens, we're going to have all the people you mentioned. Yes, indeed, we're going to have them all in there. If that is the case, and I had Lindsey Graham's word on that, then I'll tell you what I would do, is when they have this vote on Tuesday, if the Democrats don't have enough votes, I would have Republicans vote for impeachment. I would have every damn Republican. In fact, I'd have all the Republicans get together and vote in a block and vote overwhelmingly to impeach Trump, to bring the impeachment hearings into the Senate, and then let Lindsey Graham call in the whistleblower, quid pro quo Joe, Hunter Biden, Chalupa, and the whole 9 yards, and just destroy that entire thing. It would be absolutely hilarious if a few Democrats bailed because Nancy Pelosi realizes what a disaster it is. Have a few Democrats bail and maybe try to go for a censure or something like that. It would be really funny if the Republicans threw a wrench in the spokes by having every one of them vote for impeachment, only so that they could go to the Senate trial, so that they could call the whistleblower, the bug-eyed fool, all these people that I just mentioned. That would be hilarious. Very risky politically, and I probably in a serious manner wouldn't advise it, but it's the crazy side of me wants to go there. Okay, so we have Boris Johnson saying that his government is continuing to make preparations for a no-deal Brexit in the event that the deal that he brokered with the EU does not pass. Of course, we have the parliamentary elections coming up on December 12th, so they're right around the corner. And of course, we still don't know. It looks like that the Conservatives are going to probably win that election. Jeremy Corbyn's kind of dropped the ball there, and but you never know where the Brexiteers are going to go, and you don't really know how it's going to turn out. But I was happy to hear that Boris Johnson is not going to get bogged down if he doesn't get the votes for the deal that he put together with the EU. I'm happy to hear that he's all in for saying, hey, if this deal that I worked out with the EU doesn't get ratified, hey, we'll go no deal. That was very, very good for me to hear that. I hope he's serious, and I hope that happens. That's the way it should go right there. No deal Brexit. Win the parliamentary vote and do a no deal Brexit. That's exactly what I would do. And I don't have time to go into all the reasons why I want to see that happen, but it's not just for the Brexit and the here and the now. It's for the long term of the EU and what it would mean, a hard Brexit exit versus a deal. I think it's huge for the long-term prognosis for the way things would go after the Brits leave the EU. How they do it is absolutely important as far as what it means to the future of the EU, which I hope is none. They should just ban the whole thing. It's a disaster. Okay. Let's go ahead and get into the last 3 chapters of Lee Smith's book. A couple important bits of information. Let's go to page 277. And the title of this chapter, chapter 20, is The Forgers. Now, in this particular chapter is where he really focuses on the fat man, Stefan Halper. And he points out, he's laying out the dates, all the dates and all the times that Halper met with or was involved with people inside the Trump campaign. And he points out that on July 16th, July of 2016, that Halper first meets with Carter Page at Cambridge Symposium on July 11th. And he tries to draw him into a conversation about the Trump campaign, particularly the chairman, Paul Manafort. It says here that Downer also speaks with Page, who was sitting next to him during the keynote address delivered by the former Secretary of State, Madeleine Not-So-Bright. Madeleine Half-Bright. So, here we can see another example of Halper and Downer together. So, obviously, Halper and Downer are definitely more than just acquaintances. So, we have this other example. Here's Downer in July of 2016 with Halper. This is now, 3 or 4 times that we've placed them in the same place at the same time. We know they're both part of this whole Cambridge clique. And it shows you that is deeply involved in the coup as Halper was, and he's the key inside informant, driving so many things with Flynn, Papadopoulos, Carter Page. It appears that he may have been feeding Steele as well. And, of course, we know how the Papadopoulos thing went down, and here we can clearly see that Halper and Downer are a team. And that makes the case, I think, clearly that they were working as a team when they set up Papadopoulos. It's just more damning information, and I think that Halper, at the end of the Durham investigation, not so much the IG, but at the end of the Durham investigation, I will have a very, very difficult time if Halper is not one of the guy who faces some of the most heavy charges, because this guy was running a coup. Okay? Straight up. And this guy needs to be put in the slam for the rest of his life. We also have another mention here on December 2016, just a few months later, 6 months later, Halper begins to brief the US and the UK press on allegations regarding Flynn and Lakova. So, as you can see, he was a highly active player in the coup. He is probably the most active player running the real dirty stuff, the frame-ups, the setups, destroying people's lives. Flynn, Papagalopoulos, Halper is the guy doing all that, and he's working with Down the Hatch Downer, and I'm convinced we're going to find Joseph Mifsud as well. So the timeline that Lee Smith lays out here shows that Halper was more than just a source. His contribution appears to have been even more significant than Christopher Steele. Exactly. No one had a bigger impact than Halper in this entire coup plot, other than maybe Obama and the mastermind, Reverend Clinton. But as far as the inside players, things that the guys who were, turning the screws, no one was more active than Halper, and the stuff that he was doing was literally just really dirty stuff. He was knowingly destroying the lives of innocent people, knowingly taking the measures to bring about a coup or to interfere in the election and how that would turn out. This guy needs to be in prison for the rest of his damn life. The fat man, Stefan Halper. What a scumbag. This guy sucks. Man, oh man, the more you read about the stuff this guy was involved in, and they've been trying to protect him, man, oh man. I hope Durham throws everything he's got at this guy. And I bet he will. Now let's go to page 282. Page 282. Glenn Simpson usually accompanied Steele when he briefed the press because the former MI6 agent didn't know the details of the reports he was supposed to have written. On October 11, 2016, Jonathan Weiner introduced Steele to a State Department colleague, that would be Kathleen Kvalik. It was a week before the first FISA and a little less than a month before the election. Steele downloaded everything from Fusion GPS, everything that they had on Trump and Russia. More evidence that he was not the author of the dossier, but rather was the salesman. The notes of career Foreign Service Officer Kathleen Kvalik are evidence that Steele was not the author of the dossier. And then he goes on to explain, which we've already covered extensively here on TowerGate. Let's go to page 286, where he's talking about the dossier, and he says, but the dossier is not an intelligence product. It is fiction, a literary forgery, populated with real characters, but who did not do or say the things attributed to them. And the dossier's authors are not intelligence officers, but journalists and academics accustomed to running smear campaigns and dirty tricks operations and lying. Halper wasn't a spy. He was a dirty tricks operative with 4 decades of experience. He was a con man that the FBI was determined to protect. The actual definition of someone like Halper in the intelligence community is known as an agent provocateur. He was stirring up things, manifesting things, stirring up things. Now let's go to page 309. In January, after Barr's confirmation, Rod Rosenstein had announced that he was retiring, but the new AG had insisted that Rosenstein stick around to help clean up the mess that he helped make. It's clear that Rosenstein flipped. It's clear that Rosenstein flipped at some point. Whether Barr initiated it or Rosenstein offered himself up, he started becoming very helpful. Now that's important. Now we all assume that something had to be going on when we saw him stand behind Barr as Barr went through and exonerated Trump on the Mueller report for obstruction. We all saw the look that Rosenstein had on his face, and he looked like a man who either needed to take a dump really bad. His ass cheeks were clearly being squeezed very tight together. He was not happy being there. I'm sure that was pretty obvious. But nevertheless, we talked at that time about the fact that Rosenstein would probably flip because he came in fairly late in the game. He came in the late spring of 2017, when most of the dark, dirty stuff had been done in late 2015, 2016. He wasn't part of that, but he did sign off on the fourth FISA. But if you remember, when he was testifying in front of Congress and he was questioned on that, he suggested that what he looked at, the information he looked at, was not the same that Congress was suggesting was what they looked at. That he suggested he was shown something different. So we talked at that time about the fact that Rosenstein may have flipped, and Lee Smith is certainly making the same point. Where exactly in the frame he flipped, I don't know. But I'm thinking it may have been. I think I think when we were talking about it here, we were talking about that little plane ride that he went on with Trump, and I think it may have been on that flight that Trump, probably having been briefed by Barr, probably talked to Rosenstein and said, "Yeah, I was talking to Barr. I know he's talked to you. You're in a world of hurt, brother." And so, yeah, I agree that Rosenstein is probably flipped. And we also know that Rosenstein had a real conflict. Remember, he's representing DOJ. We know the FBI and DOJ were constantly a little bit of conflict going on there between them during the operations. And we know that Rosenstein doesn't seem to be a big fan of McCabe. I don't think he likes McCabe at all personally, and I don't think he's a big fan of Comey either. And so there's kind of a split between FBI and DOJ. They're both going to be pointing the finger at each other. And I believe that if anyone can certainly give up McCabe and Strzok, it's Rosenstein, because he was in all those private meetings when they were talking about coup attempts and all these other things. So, yeah, I would agree that Rosenstein probably at some point has flipped. Okay, let's get to Dumbass of the Week. And what's great about Dumbass of the Week this week is we have a winner this week who just a week ago nobody even knew this person, had never heard their name before. So it's not like one of the regulars was, the Bug-Eyed Fools won the last 2 weeks in a row, won 3 out of the last 4. It's typically, the Pelosi's, the Bug-Eyed Fool, people like that are pretty much win the Dumbass of the Week. This week it was someone blew away the field, someone we didn't even know about. This time last week we had never even heard of this person's name. So it's nice to see a rising star in the field shoot to the top and claim the honors. Let's go through the Dumbass of the Week votes. Youngblood, he went with the mainstream media. Now, keep that in mind, because on the last video of this year, we're going to be doing Dumbass of the Year. And while I believe that the media hasn't been fully exposed for their role in the coup, that'll happen next year, I do believe that they have a strong chance of becoming Dumbass of the Year. Next year, I'm certain that the media will be Dumbass of the Year overwhelmingly, because by then we'll know about what a major role they played in the coup. But yes, Youngblood is voting for the mainstream media. Oregon Outback wants to go with Jessica Got It All Kwong. Well done, Oregon. Spectre, again, Jessica Kwong. Coyote, Jessica Kwong. And of course, Jessica Kwong and Newsweek. Some people put in Newsweek as a vote, and some people put in Jessica Kwong. I'm looking at them as one and the same. The Newsweek article written by Jessica Kwong claiming that President Trump was playing golf and tweeting when in fact he was actually on Thanksgiving Day over in Afghanistan serving Thanksgiving dinner to the troops. And that's why she was fired. Sherman Lin. He's going to go with Spencer. Of course, we're talking about the Secretary of the Navy who Trump fired, Spencer. Hunter Biden and Jessica Kwong. Keith Fellows is going to go with Hunter Biden, Jessica Got It Kwong, and Heels Up Harris. Gitmo is going to go with Merkel, Hunter Biden, and Chink Olgar. Yeah, now, Merkel, I'm sure many of you saw that comment. I haven't had a chance to comment on her comment, but essentially in that speech where she said, we may have to give up free speech in order to protect freedom. Well, when you lose free speech, brother, they've already lost the right to bear arms. If you can't arm yourself and you can't speak up, you ain't free, brother. And then, of course, Jink Olgar, he is running in the same district running. There's 5 people running in that race to replace that nutty Democrat who had to leave because of her, problems. So Papadopoulos is running in that race. The Republican who previously held that seat for 2 or 3 terms is running for that seat. Jink is also running for that seat. So there's like 3 Republicans, 2 Democrats running for that seat. And so it's funny, Jink and Papadopoulos running in the same voting district for that seat in Congress. We have Jack Kennedy, and he wants to go with the guy who has to clean up Schiff's poop after he essentially pooped himself in the hearings after his impeachment, whatever you want to call it, the Inquisition, didn't go very well. So he's suggesting a guy to clean up the mess for the bug-eyed fool pooping himself at the results of his misguided adventure. Peter James, he's going to go with Newsweek, Hunter Biden, and Praying Nancy. Praying Nancy. Yes, Nancy better pray. She better pray for a solution from the heavens, because I've looked at this thing every way you can look at it, and I don't see any way at all Pelosi can win. She does impeachment, she loses. She doesn't do impeachment, she loses. She tries to do censure, she loses. There's no way out. She made a huge mistake, and she's going to pay dearly. And yes, she better pray. Thank you so much, Peter, our friend out in the great Northwest. Zara Drew is going to go with Kwong. Gene is going to go with Newsweek. Kaepernick and Joe Biden. Kaepernick has got to be the biggest loser I have ever seen in my life. This guy is such a freaking loser. Not a single team bid on him when he did this recent tryout. He's an idiot. Stage Door Johnny is going to go with Jessica Kwong. Mona Lisa is going to go with Merkel, and anyone who thinks Merkel's ideas are good. How true. Freddie Schaefer going to go with Nadler, the Penguin, Biden, and Booty Boy. And the reason for Booty Boy is, of course, he had this public showing of affection with his husband, which, just as Freddie is laying out here, reminds everyone that if he becomes president, we're going to have a first husband, and we're going to be having to see this public showing of affection between the president and his husband. And that is going to get in a lot of people's heads and go, oh man, I don't know if we're quite ready to go there. So it's really a very bad political move on his part, and very well done by Freddie pointing that out. Straight Arrow is going to go with No Malarkey Biden. Linda Martin, Madam Botox, Jessica Kwong, and the Penguin. Jonathan Cassidy, Joe Biden, Obama, and the Rotten Reverend. 3 solid choices. Sue Sung is going to go with the Penguin, Madam Botox, and the Bug-Eyed Fool. Susan Lowell is going to go with Newsweek. Jenny Tweets is going to go with Newsweek and Hunter Biden. David Wharton is going to go with Kwong. Tina is going to go with Merkel, Hunter Biden, and Jessica Kwong. 3 very solid picks there for Tiana. Internet Privacy Advocate is going to go with Hunter Biden. Chevy Van, he likes Adam Shit. Just shit. Not shit for brains, just Adam Shit. Kimmy is going to go with Newsweek, Bloomberg, and Crappernick. Well done, Kimmy. Jeanette Bateman is going to go with Hunter Biden, Kwong, and Joe Biden for the finger biting of his wife, which did not look very good, just to say in the least. Douglas. Yes, that's right, Douglas, and he only voted once this week. Hey, you're improving, Douglas. That's good. Keep trying. Keep working on that. Usually Douglas likes to vote 2 or 3 times. Yes, but this week he only voted once. Unless he actually did vote 2 or 3 more times, I just didn't see it, in which case he'll be complaining that I did not catch his second and third attempts at voting. All right, Douglas. Douglas is going to go with Robert De Niro. Thank you very much, Douglas. He's been deserving of that for a very long time. That guy's talking about another whack job idiot, Robert De Niro. The Secretary of the Navy, Spencer, and Strzok's wife. Yes, Strzok's wife, but the reason Douglas thinks it's Strzok's wife is because she just screwed herself out of half of her husband's pension. Well, she works for the SEC, so she's probably collects a pretty good paycheck and will have a good pension of her own. And quite honestly, if she divorces his ass, she'll probably clean him out anyway. So I'm pretty sure Mrs. Strzok is going to come out of that smelling very, very well. Peter's been Stokeness, on the other hand, is probably going to be in the lockup. It'd be my guess. Jamie Anzavino is going to go with Newsweek, the Penguin, and Madame Botox. Cards is going to go with the media. That's right, the media. Keep that in mind, Cards, as I just mentioned earlier. When we began here, I think when we look at Dumbass of the Year, that's exactly where you might see the media take it and win big. But really, next year, after we expose the Rollins in the coup, that's when it's really going to be bad. I think the media, we could see media organizations totally go out of business. Sane Environmentalist wants to go with the Dem candidates who think we are all stupid. Yes, they think we're all stupid because the majority of their voters are. Well, we can say stupid, we can say ignorant, we can say low information, we can say needy, we can use a lot of terms to describe the average Democrat, but they're generally not the sharpest tools in the shed. So they probably, the Democrats, getting on the point that you're making there, saying, they just assume that the Republicans are as clueless as their voters are. But that's not true, of course. We know that that is not true. We have Lori Holt. She's going to go with Kwong, Hunter Biden, and Legs in the Air Harris. Judy Moore. Is it Maury or Moore? I never know how to pronounce your name, so I'm very sorry, my dear, if I'm mispronouncing your name. Judy Moore, Judy Maury, I'm not really sure. But Judy is going to go with Spencer, Secretary of the Navy, who Trump fired, and Kwong. Jessica Kwong, the former reporter, fake news reporter for Newsweek, which was, of course, bought and sold for $1. I don't know if they're worth $1, but, Jessica Kwong, she'll probably turn up working for the Atlantic Council. And then she'll work her way into the NSC, and she'll probably become a whistleblower. That looks like her career is laid out very well for her. Okay, so I don't think it's any surprise to anyone that Jessica Kwong and Newsweek, I'm kind of putting the two together, because they are really the same thing. So Jessica Kwong and Newsweek blowing away the field this week with 23 votes. Jessica Kwong wins Dumbass of the Week. Imagine that. A person we had never heard before. A week ago, we never knew who this person was. All of a sudden, just out of nowhere, she rises to the heights of winning this coveted, prestigious award, Dumbass of the Week, here on TowerGate. That just shows that you never know. You just never know in life. A shooting star. I think we'll be hearing more about her in the years to come. She's got a future in the Demo-Commie Party. Number 2 is going to be Hunter Biden. Hunter Biden. Yeah, we need to get that guy to testify. I don't think we'll learn much from him. He's dumb as his daddy is, I think. But, a guy who's getting paid all that money, and now he's in the middle of a divorce. He just found out he's got an illegitimate child with a hooker, or a prostitute, or a stripper, whatever. And now he's claiming to be basically broke, and he has no gainful employment. This guy's a mess. He is a mess, just like his daddy. Speaking of his daddy, Quid Pro Quo Joe is going to come in 3rd place this week for Dumbass of the Week. So there we go. Jessica Kwong / Newsweek, Dumbass of the Week. The winner, coming in 2nd place, Hunter Biden. Number 3, Joe Biden. Thank you so much for tuning in. Back tomorrow with more TowerGate. You guys have a good evening. See ya. Bye.